Hi and welcome to another episode of Blockheads. I'm Jacob. This, of course, is Dr. George, as you know by now. Now, today we've got a guest who is the CEO of what was a Melbourne startup and now is a global tech powerhouse, which is Blockchain Global. This is CEO Sam Lee. Sam, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on Blockheads.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Marvellous. Now, you were one of the earliest practitioners of the blockchain technology. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, I think the industry starts off with just people being interested in technology and sharing their passions with other like-minded individuals. And having been part of the Australian blockchain Bitcoin meetup scene from day one, it has been a very interesting journey nonetheless, having met a lot of characters along the way and of course built some great friendships and some great business relationships as well.
Now, one of the things I've heard you state a couple of times in various talks, etc., is that you believe that the potential of blockchain is unlimited.
Absolutely. We feel blockchain as a technology has yet to be explored to its fullest potential. And so there will be decades before we fully realize the use cases that come out of the use cases that exist today. And I describe the opportunity as unlimited because I think what limits us in life is imagination, and this is an industry that is very much shaped by people with great ideas and imagination.
George?
Well, I've got a vested interest in this area because, to some extent, I do a little bit of work with Sam. But I have to start off by saying how well credentialed Sam is for this position because he was a tertiary dropout. And I think that without a doubt...
All the best are.
Without a doubt, that's got to be a starting point. So I will not talk to anyone who is a graduate or has got a PhD and so on. It seems that it may be a hindrance to your career choice. Number two, what a fantastic center you've created which embraces philanthropy down here, which is the Blockchain Center. Yes? And upstairs is Blockchain Global, which is the commercial part of the business. And so, to me, I love the fact that you're able to combine those two worlds together. And perhaps we can talk a little bit about how this enterprise relates to someone who has no knowledge about Bitcoin and someone who is in a very advanced stage of development and creating global disruptive technology.
Well, diving into the experience that I have, limited, of course, in comparison to you, George, I realized from a very early stage that before an industry existed, there was just a little bit of technology and a whole bunch of passionate people with a lot of talent. And Blockchain Center, as a not-for-profit, has been a vehicle to help us capture that talent and, of course, put that towards positive use to build out a growing and thriving ecosystem. So we've identified that funding, technology, and talent are the three pillars of creating a buzzing ecosystem, and therefore having Blockchain Global having the mandate to fund, and of course our numerous joint venture subsidiaries building great technology for the industry, we've grown into a global powerhouse that is here to build blockchains and, of course, solutions that help the rest of the world benefit from this very unique distributed ledger platform.
Now, the statistics really do speak for themselves. So you've invested, or rather you've incubated 62 startups successfully. You've held 570 events. And I believe you've invested somewhere in the region of $200 million into those projects. And might I say, you've built up relationships with giants like Amazon and Microsoft and, of course, IBM. So having those giants as players, that's really saying something, isn't it?
Yeah, and not all these giants have built commercial relationships with us. For example, IBM is a global partner of our blockchain center, and we have relied on them as not just a sponsor, but also a provider of content and expertise. In addition to that, having a teaming agreement signed with Capgemini gives us access to commercial deal flow and opportunities to explore some management consulting use cases. We predominantly specialize in providing existing blockchain-enabled companies technology, as well as funding listed companies to pivot into a blockchain-enabled future.
And which are some of these publicly listed companies that have got a reasonable understanding and are investing in these opportunities?
Yes, well, just last month we have purchased a tranche of shares from Oak Capital to become the largest shareholder of PathCorp, a Japanese holding company that we've now created a joint venture within that specializes in providing blockchain advisory and consulting work.
Now they're listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, aren't they?
That's right.
Yes. Well, that's a move and a half as well.
And in fact, you know, Sam has always been asking for a regulated environment to protect investors, so it's a dream come true. You've got your regulation now. And in fact, I have to agree with you. I mean, there were just too many events happening in a completely chaotic manner. And I think that new investors were at risk. So suddenly we've got this very regulated environment. And this could spell a new dawn for partnerships between sort of blockchain opportunities and listed companies.
Yes, and we see a regulated environment protected by the governance structures of a listed company allows for the better delivery of any blockchain-enabled solution. A listed company has probably decades of years of access to Fortune 500 companies that they could then bring the solution into the mass market. So we see utility tokens that are issued by listed companies as a way forward for investors to get exposure to this industry in a protected environment by buying shares which attach rights to them as shareholders, whilst continued opportunities to invest directly in utility tokens becomes, of course, a higher risk and potentially higher reward opportunity as you are participating in funding some exciting startups that are just beginning with their experimentations around this technology.
Now, I just wanted to point out that you're co-founder of the Blockchain Center, you're CEO of Blockchain Global. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Blockchain Center's function, and there's quite a few of them around the world now, is really to raise public awareness about blockchain as a technology, whereas the Blockchain Global part is the incubator, which is also, its function is to develop relationships with the governments. For example, I know you've got a relationship with Austrade, is that correct?
Yes, that is a relationship facilitated through our not-for-profit blockchain center, and we find that it's easier to build these relationships with government if we focus on the narrative around educating the general public on what is blockchain, what is Bitcoin, and what is cryptocurrency, because you need to understand that there are differences between these three key terminology in order for you to have a productive and useful conversation in this industry.
I just wanted to get back to something you said previously. So are these new relationships with regulated publicly listed companies, is that a sort of an evolutionary step from the ICO fever that we saw earlier this year and towards the end of last year? And do you think that it'll continue to evolve to create its own particular hybrid methodology of raising funds?
Well, in the medium term, I see utility tokens as better offered in a regulated publicly listed company because they have, of course, more experience, more depth of knowledge, and more networks to actually bring blockchain into the real world. In the longer term, however, we see that anyone could become a public company by obviously following the requirements for instance, getting audited accounts and having the necessary board and shareholder meetings and representation, and issuing a security token so that you're able to have a liquidity event for your investors much earlier on in the life cycle of an early stage startup than, for instance, going towards and final IPO.
So look, I remember a few years ago, I switched on, I think it was CNBC, and I saw you there, and you were talking about various things around blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and you said an outrageous thing. You said that Bitcoin was outrageous, was scandalous. Bitcoin is going to hit $2,500 next year, right? And I remember the price at the time would have been somewhere around $500 or $600. Are you still a big fan of Bitcoin or altcoin, or is it a mixture, or where do you stand now? And are you fearless enough to make another prediction as you did on that day?
Well, only for you, George. And I did get into quite a little bit of trouble by making the $25,000 prediction.
25,000.
You said 2,500.
Sorry, $2,500 prediction, which was 3,600 Australian dollars at the time. And the luck would have it that Bitcoin ticked over $4,000 when Australian when the due date came about. But the reason why I was confident to make a prediction around Bitcoin is because it is the original use case of blockchain technology, and in all honesty, there has been a relationship that everybody has built with Bitcoin as a use case versus any other altcoins that have came since. As for a prediction, let's say that in 12 months' time that it's worth well over 20,000 US.
And what do you think will be the drivers here? Is it ETFs going to be the starting of a new bull market, or what is going to be that
I've read that Canada is looking at doing an ETF potentially.
Well, I feel that ETFs is a great way for institutional capital who want exposure into holding onto Bitcoin, and Bitcoin being very distributed and diversified in terms of the number of people holding it means that it is a cryptocurrency that is not really able to be manipulated. So I feel that ETFs will be one of the drivers, but another significant driver is, of course, the long-term holding of Bitcoins by people who, of course, are losing faith in the traditional financial ecosystem. And, of course, this is a very minor part of participants in the global economy, but of course that grows and wanes depending on where we are in the global financial life cycle.
Now, can we digress just for a moment? George and I were at one of your talks recently, and you mentioned philanthropy, particularly third world countries, and what sort of application blockchain could have in those areas. Particularly, people make donations to certain non-profit organisations, and a lot of the time the money that goes to those countries, well, it gets skimmed by despots, etc., and only a small amount actually ends up going to the people who actually need it. Do you want to speak to that?
Of course. We see philanthropy needing to build more transparent mechanisms in order for donors to continue to have trust in these not-for-profit organisations. and blockchain is a tool in a toolkit and is, of course, not the answer to all of the world's problems. You know, the potential of blockchain may be unlimited, but the potential of human greed is also unlimited as well. And the blockchain ability to store records transparently is a great mechanism for us to scrutinize transactions, but money will still go missing.
Sure.
It just means that the consequences can be traced, and hopefully disciplinary actions could be taken much more easily and effectively, leveraging the blockchain technology.
George, final thoughts?
Well, I think that we've got a great opportunity to finish up with, there's the constant criticism of the utility, right? You know, people talk about blockchain and coins and so on, but where is the demonstrated utility of this technology today to give us the excitement and the belief in this product tomorrow?
The utility of blockchain is it allows value to be transmitted without a middleman. It effectively is the internet of value, because the internet has allowed information to be transmitted without a middleman. What we see blockchain having the potential to do is enrich society in a way we never thought possible. And we could achieve that if we all open up the possibility of leveraging blockchain by having the right regulatory foundation, as the right regulatory foundation is what makes this industry 1,000 times larger than what it is today. And we cannot grow without dialogue between the public and private sector.
Sam Lee, I would like to thank you very much for being on Blockheads TV today. Will you do us the pleasure of joining us again in another episode when there's another update? Now, don't forget to go to youtube.com/Blockheads TV and subscribe. And also have a look at some of our former episodes. I think you'll find them very informative. And in particular, you can look at some of the market updates that our expert Matt Harry does on a weekly basis. Thanks for joining us, George.
Power to the people. Thank you, Sam. Power to the people.
Thanks, Sam.
Get rid of these middle guys. I'm over it. I'm completely over it. Thank you, Sam.
And in maths we trust.
That's
In
right.
Maths we trust. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.